guys, I'm just going to chime in here really quickly to tell you about Energetic Consulting. We are a sales, marketing and business management support consultancy dedicated to the Australian solar power, renewable energy and clean tech industries. We can help you with all your marketing needs, sales training and business management coaching. So have a look at our website, www.energeticconsulting.com.au, and let's see how we can help your business grow and scale to take you to the next level. Okay, welcome to episode 2 in Energetic Consulting Sustainable Stories series, aimed at supporting businesses right now, founders of companies, management, staff in developing resilience strategies, better habits, routines, and really focusing on inspiration for those in need right now and drawing upon business leaders. And today we have a leader in his field, Dean Mannix. G'day, Dean. Welcome to Sustainable Stories. Dean is a best-selling author and has presented at conferences in 25 different countries, has led sales programs for really hundreds, if not more, companies right across the globe, and right now has been doing some great work within the solar industry and energy storage industry in Australia. So we're really privileged to have Dean on the conversation. And also, Dean helped us on our recent COVID-19 webinar series where we raised $6,000 for charity.
Thanks, Russ.
Very kind of Dean. So, welcome, mate.
Great to be here.
Yeah, really good to have you, and really keen to understand more about your background today and your career and what's brought you to this point. Because, I mean, you've had some great success over the years, and I know you've had some low points, as we all have, over the years as well. So maybe just give us a little bit of where you're at today, what you're doing today, and a little bit of the backstory.
Oh, today. So, well, if you look at actually today, had a fantastic day. So I've had a really great morning. Got in my Japanese, so learning Japanese. Got in my ride for 3 hours. Got home, had a quick swim in the ocean. Sorted out a few administrative matters for a few clients. Just run a free webinar for a client on personal resilience for about 60 of their staff to help them through this period. Spoke to CEO about one of those that I did a couple of days ago, and he gave me some really amazing stories about how a few of his people had responded. And now I've got you, and then this afternoon I'll go for a swim with my daughter and then do a bit more work. I've got a large client taking on a heap of our online content, so I'm just helping the team over in the Philippines administrate that to get it right. So,
fantastic.
My life's pretty bloody good, you know. Like I always say, if I complain, slap me.
And what about before? You know, in the years gone by, what's the backstory? Give us some insight.
Oh wow! So I'm an ex-lawyer, so trained lawyer. Was qualified solicitor back in the day. Went to London, worked for an investment bank, and got a qualification over there. But then bailed out and did some more backpacking. Came back, finished the law, got qualified, went to work for a client who was doing some development, started building childcare centres, found a financial partner, bought them out, built up a very, very significant business. So I had 137 employees when I was 25 and a half.
Wow.
Millions of dollars of assets, construction going on left, right and centre, and I owned half of the show. Managed to blow it all up by the time I was 27. So I had a massive fun fight with a financial partner. Nothing like a lawyer in an argument, especially a young, stupid lawyer like me. So managed to blow all that up, went very close to bankruptcy, but managed to sell my way out of that. The way I got into sales was I sent myself $437,000 in debt at the age of 27.
Wow.
With no assets, no family money. And a mate said, you should sell photocopiers and technology. And I said, no, you've got no idea how much debt I'm in. He goes, mate, you got no idea how much you could earn. And so away I went. So I managed to sell my way out of that problem, which is fantastic, get back on top. Had a bit of tragedy at the end of 99. So I watched my best mate actually die in a skydiving accident, and you know, checked out mentally. Then the guy was like my second dad, who mentored me quite a bit when I was younger. Also passed away from cancer a couple of months later, and so took 9 months out, sort of floating around the world and figuring out what to do, navel gazing. Sent myself broke again, not bankrupt, but basically, you know, in debt again. You know, brilliant. Hadn't learned from the first time. And then started the consulting business, so SalesITV, and has been an amazing ride, has been an absolutely incredible ride. So, and that all started because as part of my charity, when I was selling the copiers, I was really into the motivational stuff. And so I used to write a motivational newsletter back in the 90s, the days when you had to print it out and then, fold it up and put it in the thing and lick the envelope to close it and lick the stamp to put it on it. So I used to send out 900 of those a month. And as part of it, I'd get a speaker in once a month to speak for free for all of the newsletter attendees. And we'd get about 80, 100 turn up to an event. And I was doing that with a mate. And we just had speakers not turn up. And so me and my mate became the motivational speakers. And then someone said, "Can you come and do this for our company?" And we looked at each other and went, "Oh yeah, I reckon we can."
Yeah.
That's how it all started. Literally, that's how it all started. And then with the sales, the client said, "Oh, listen, we love the motivational stuff. Can you teach our salespeople how to sell? You've got a great sales business." And once again, "Oh yeah, I reckon I can." And away we went. So it's pretty funny, right?
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, you've obviously had some real high points, but you've obviously, you've had low points as well. And
yeah.
And I mean, that really, that builds strength of character, and clearly it has in your case. I mean, you've come through stronger than ever.
It does if you let it. I mean, the bottom line is, I think that, I love the saying that the only people who brag about being poor are the rich.
Yeah.
And so I think if you let the pain of those experiences and those challenges, and you're willing to learn the lessons of those experiences and those challenges, and you're willing to remind yourself that there's always a way forward and a way out, then yeah, absolutely, they're character building. But for many people, I'd say more people than not, they're actually life destroying. We love the story about the outlier that had a really tough life and all of a sudden did something fantastic and amazing, but that's not the standard story.
Yeah.
There's a set of skills that go with it, and that's why I'm so passionate about the resilience stuff and the motivation and the confidence building side of stuff, because it is learnable. And there are more people who find themselves in tough situations than find themselves in good situations. And if they just understood the strategies and the ways to move forward, we'd have a lot more people in a really good place. And I guess because I can come from a place of, hey, this is not theory. This is stuff I've had to use through my life as I've had to bounce back from events that, happened to me and that in some shape or manner I caused. I can speak about it with credibility and obviously passion.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things I admire in you, Dean, is that you're always full of passion. You're always full of, vibrancy. You bring your A game every time that I've seen you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really interested in, in how you do that, because you've gone through those challenges. You've learned some great life lessons. And then you've also shared that with a lot of people so they can become stronger. And like you said, not everyone makes it. I mean, the percentage of businesses that are still in business after 2 years, 5 years, 10 years is actually single digits. By the time you get to 10 years, it's really like a couple of % of businesses actually survive, which is pretty brutal. I mean, I've certainly gone through my highs and lows as well. But in your case, you've come through the huge debts, and you've paid them off. You've come through. You've become stronger. How do you do that? How do you get up in the morning? Like, what are your habits? What are your routines? You went for a 3-hour bike ride today. What does it look like for you when the alarm goes off?
So when it's interesting, I tend to wake up before my alarm goes off most mornings because I've got something that I'm excited about doing planned. And because I've normally committed to another mate that I'm going to be ready by a certain time. Yeah. So it's a combination.
Good accountability.
Yeah, so I'm an early riser. I'm up generally around about 4:10 most mornings. But I get up, I potter around, I'll do my Japanese in the morning. So I'm on day 58 straight now. I've got that little Duolingo app, and I'm doing that because literally 58 days ago I realised that the world was going to hell because I had clients cancelling conferences, and a global client who said to someone I was about to train in Sydney, "No, we've now stopped all global training." And so that was a bit ahead of the curve. But I went, wow, you know what, financially it's going to be a tough year. And I had financial goals, but I went, there's going to be a lot of uncontrollables that will not enable me to achieve those goals.
Yep.
Without, insane amount of work, which I wasn't really interested in, because the payback for this period in terms of trying to work your butt off to achieve something more, when I'd rather be focusing on my health, learning new stuff, my family, etc., wasn't great enough. But so I do that, because that way I go, right, I've achieved that. I am a disciplined person. I promised myself I'd do that, and I did it, and I feel good about myself. And then there'll be exercise. So, today's cycling, tomorrow's running with a mate. So I've got something in the diary pretty much every morning from an exercise perspective. Then I'll come back. I'll normally do a little bit of meditation, or go for a swim in the surf and just enjoy the ocean for 10, 15 minutes, just to center myself, and then get stuck into work. And normally, on most days, I'll have a post-it note on my desk saying, this is the first task. So rather than jumping straight into the emails, it'll be, right, that's the first task.
Yeah.
So once again, I start the day off by actually achieving something, rather than getting caught up in the noise. So I'm very disciplined about my mornings, because I have this very strong philosophy. If you can win the morning, the rest of the day takes care of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And geez, you cram a hell of a lot in before breakfast, Dean.
Yeah, it's funny. It's often funny when you're coming, you're cruising back at 9 a.m. and maybe I've done a bit of work or something in the morning as well. You sort of go, wow, the day's on, it's afoot,
Yeah.
and away we go.
It's such a good feeling.
Absolutely.
I think for a lot of people right now, that's the hardest thing, is this sense of overwhelm of what to do next. And I think a few of us that have gone through those highs and lows realize that you can work your tail off. You can work 16 hours a day, but you're going to burn out, and you have to maintain that health and wellness and your energy as well. And obviously family and social connections as best you can. And without that balance, then you're out of harmony. And it sounds like, you've got good balance happening there. So then you come to your work clear and focused and ready to go.
Yeah, I think that if you're trying to balance things up, you're constantly in this struggle between this thing and that thing and that thing and that thing. So really, it's about focus. It's about so look. If I'm lucky in terms of, I sat down, did my planning, asked myself what's the worst case scenario if I earn no money for 12 months in terms of me, my family, what's going to go on. Figured that out and went, well, that's not that. It's not. Nobody's losing their life. No real long-term damage to our plans is going to be done. Sure, we're going to take on a bit of extra debt that we didn't want to, but it's going to be okay.
Yep.
As long as we live to a decently regimented cost base and focus on doing the things that don't cost a lot of money that we enjoy, then we're going to be fine. So I was lucky, right? So my focus each day is more about how can I get the most out of this environment in ways other than earning loads of money.
Yeah.
But for people who have to earn money and who have to feed people and who don't have that luxury, it's focus. So it's waking up in the morning, and rather than going, what are all the problems I need to sort out, just being focused and saying, right, where is the money today?
Yep.
That's where my energy has to go. That's where it has to flow. That's where my focus needs to be. And that needs to consume me from, probably, because I realize other people aren't awake at 4 a.m, probably from, 8 a.m. till 10:30 in the morning. That needs to be consuming you and your mind and your mental space to the sacrifice of everything else.
Yeah.
So I think overwhelm is coming from the fact that people aren't focused on the things that really matter.
Yeah. And I also think during times of stress, this is a bit of a hard reality sometimes, but it actually exposes our poor routines and our poor habits. It amplifies them.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I liken it to, in terms of control of your mind and your emotions at the moment, right? Normal day-to-day life, and let's just go back, let's go back to even January. Let's go back to January. Running your business, running your family, running your life, staying on top of things was kind of like driving home at the end of the day. You could do it without thinking.
Yeah.
And even if you had 10 things on your mind, somehow you got home and you were safe and you were fine. Now it's like running your mind and your heart at the moment is like driving 180 k's an hour along a long winding road that you don't know with the lights off.
Yeah.
So all those little failings that normally aren't a problem are causing a lot of heartache right now, because we need 100% focus, 100% control of the head, 100% control of the heart, and it needs to be switched on for extended periods of time, whereas we normally get away with not really having to pay attention to that sort of stuff.
No, and I think, someone's ability to have prepared in advance for stressful times in their business is crucial. So understanding that stressful times will come and there will be highs and lows. So let's be prepared with good systems and organization structures if that reality occurs. But also on that personal nature, just being prepared mentally that when the stress and the overwhelm kicks in, like what's in your toolbox to be able to cope with that.
Yeah, good humans do good business, right? And so first and foremost, you've got to focus on making yourself that good human, and then you'll do good business. But stress humans do bad business.
Yeah.
Angry humans do bad business. Overwhelmed humans do bad business. So you've got to focus on yourself. Only the strong can help the weak, and more than ever before, paying attention to yourself is actually taking care of everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about, from your perspective, have you had, when you had the $400,000 debt, did you have fear kick in at that point? Like, oh my God, how am I going to pay this thing back? And how did you deal with it, if you did?
Probably more ego than fear.
Yeah.
So fear of embarrassment and fear of lack of importance, and those were my demons at the time, and it was about tackling those that was the important thing for me, was just getting over myself and getting out of the way of myself so that I could get on with finding a solution.
Yeah.
And taking the ego out of it. And even it's interesting with this. I think that there's a concept that's I really love, which is often what will cause you the most harm is the stuff that you're hanging on to that you just need to let go of.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're hanging on to where things were at 3 months ago, and that might have been that you were going to have a wedding in Positano, it might have been that you were going to take a trip with your mates to Las Vegas, it might have been that you were going to buy a new car, it might have been that you planned on moving to new premises and having a big billboard saying, I don't know. If you're hanging on to that stuff, then you're out of touch with today's reality and you can't move forward. And so I think that's a really big part of the equation too. So for me, it was about letting go of my ego, letting go of the embarrassment around that, actually being proud of the fact that I built something up absolutely amazing, had a red hot crack with no money, and that I could rebuild, that I could go again. I have this philosophy, you've done it once, you can do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. And which is the sign of many great entrepreneurs as well, that they can replicate it over and over again, even if they lose everything. They can start from scratch and go again, because there is a system and a formula somewhat to making that happen.
Yeah, and I know this might sound really strange, but to be straight up, if I went back in time knowing what I know now, there's a really good chance that I actually would have gone bankrupt.
Yeah.
and not deliberately, I would have gone, you know what, like rather than letting my ego rule my life, I'm better off just putting a line in the sand and then starting again, because the main damage would have been done to the ATO and a few big creditors that could have absorbed it, as opposed to small people. I was pretty deliberate about making sure that those people were paid out in my life. But it's an interesting one. I think a lot of people right now really need to take stock and go, okay, can my business survive? Can I survive? Is this worth the effort, or do I need to get honest about where things are at? Because I actually don't believe, for those, and for those that are absolutely on the precipice and are mentally and emotionally feeling absolutely destroyed and challenged, the one message I'd want them to take away is I don't think there's going to be a lot of hangover with COVID-19 failures.
Yeah.
So if you're worried about the next 10, 20, 30 years of your career, be wary of hanging in there for too long and too hard and ruining the rest of your life by fighting a battle that, is, to be straight up, going to be 10 times more challenging than it should be, because the economy and where we're going is going to be more challenging than any of us have ever experienced.
Yeah.
And we may get lucky with a bit of a bounce back. We may not. But I think for a lot of people, they need to be wary of fighting a battle that they just can't win and wasting the next 12 to 18 to 24 months, when what they could have done was just made some really tough decisions, put themselves in a position to refresh and start it again.
And I think, setting a really strict timeline or a time frame, that's crucial. Say, right, I'm going to give it whatever it might be, 3 months, 2 months. At the end of that period, if I haven't been successful in resurrecting, my business, then I'm going to wind it back. I'm going to shut it down. Or, I mean, I've had to do that myself, years ago, and it's brutal. I mean, I gave myself a 12-month period.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard getting to that point because you avoid it for so long. You're in denial about what the numbers really are. You're in denial about how long it's going to take to get back on top. You're in denial about how much stress it's creating the rest of your life. And I think for a lot of people that, they would have been better off if they, or at the very least, to just put it all down on paper. I mean, that was a massive moment in my life when I actually had to write down all my debts on paper, who was owed the money, what the negotiation capability was with those companies, and what my strategy was. I came to the conclusion that I could do it, and I also knew from an earning perspective that I could earn chunks of cash that would actually enable me to do that, to get on top of that.
Yep.
But I think it's really important that people are highly aware of exactly where they're at financially, what their strategy for moving forward is, what their ability to control the controllables is, what variables they have no control over are, and how those could damage their plans. Just getting clear about that stuff is really important now. I'm not saying give up. I'm just saying be wary of fighting a battle.
No, and clarity is power. I mean, having that sense of great clarity, I mean, that's real power just there, because if you can be clear on your current state without the delusion, without ego, and, being humble, then you can make well-informed decisions. And especially if you can get someone to support you, whether it's a consultancy or whoever it is.
Yeah, and I think when you make tough decisions, you're often amazed and surprised at just how supportive the world around you is.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you're avoiding those decisions and you're in denial and you're hiding from people, you'd be amazed at how horrible the world can be.
I mean, and did you have strong role models when you were going through your hard times, or do you have role models now in your life?
Yeah, it's interesting, that question. So I had very strong role models in terms of anything's possible.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to do the hard work that others aren't, that you can succeed to absolutely amazing levels. I was also very lucky in terms of, I guess, my education. So getting a law degree, I was exposed to a lot of mates at law school whose parents had really significant wealth. And so my expectations around what was possible and achievable were much higher than they would have been if I hadn't got outside of my circle from high school. And so I think my role models, most of my role models are really my mates, dads and mums, and the way that they lived their lives and ran their businesses. And then I had a very, very strong role model who was a friend's father who really took me under his wing when I lost my father. And he was a real entrepreneur, like my father was, hard worker, father of 4 kids, great husband. And so, that definitely had an impact on me. But he was also a rogue. My father was a rogue. He was a rogue.
What did I say about you, Dean?
First client I started working for was a rogue. And I've got to say that, I really had to come to a point in my life at 30 where I went, hang on, just like, what sort of a human being do you want to be, and what do you want to be known for? And where's the line between, what you believe is integrity and succeeding at all costs? And so I had to go through some interesting thinking and process to get to the place where I am now.
Yeah.
Very, very could have been on the wrong side of that.
Well, it's like the hero's journey, right? So that the old Joseph Campbell wrote a lot about the hero's journey, and that often we truly have to fail first to then find ourselves again. And there's this sense of like, what is success? Is success having, $20 million in the bank because you sold the business and everything's hunky-dory? We both know people that have done that. Or is success being in integrity with your values because you're actually truly living your values and doing what lights you up and is fulfilling? And that's a tough journey. And a lot of people, like, business is one of the greatest tools for learning about ourselves because it pushes us in all sorts of different directions to the limit.
Well, it gives you pretty blunt feedback too. Like if you're an idiot in life, you can sort of go, oh, well, like you just hang around with other idiots.
Yeah.
You feel fine. But if you're an idiot in business, you find out pretty bloody quickly because you get punished financially.
Yeah, absolutely you do. And have you got any particular tools that you use or techniques that you use when you feel yourself going off track? Is there, you mentioned you meditate in the morning. Are there other things?
Oh, I've been very, very clear about my core values since I was 20. I think 26 was the first time I really sat down and wrote those out. And health, growth, and happiness have been my 3 guiding values, since I was 26, and those haven't changed. And so when I wake up in the morning, I've got no conflict about making exercise my number 1 priority.
Yep.
When I'm not growing, either financially or mentally or spiritually, I feel very uncomfortable, and that's what makes me restless and keeps me moving forward and going for it. And if I'm doing something that's not making me happy, I have a very negative and violent reaction to that internally, because I'm so clear on the fact that if it's not making me happy, then I shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
And so definitely values. I think getting clear about what you really value and what you really care about is absolutely critical. Having a very clear vision of the person you're committed to being, and what you want to be known for. So I have my purpose in life and my life vision in my phone in an app called Life Goals.
Can you share your purpose with us? Like, what is your purpose?
Yeah, I'll read it out to you. It's so
fantastic.
My purpose is to, and has been since I was around at 27, was to inspire and empower. At 27, it was to inspire and empower others to lead a better quality of life. And the inspire was I have to walk the talk in order to inspire. The empower was I want to be able to teach other people to do that in practical ways. And lead a better quality of life, the concept there was basically, it's not to become rich or to become healthy or to have better relationships with their partner. It's you decide what a better quality of life is. I just want to give you tools to become a better person.
Yep.
Based on the rules that you apply to life. When I started the consultancy, that shifted to inspire and empower salespeople to lead a better quality of life, because I just found a real affinity and passion for those that have to sell as salespeople and or small business owners. And I think that's because of what I went through with learning to sell the photocopiers and technology, and the hole that helped me dig myself out of, and the support that I got from the leaders that I was working with in that organisation and the peers that I was surrounding myself with. That sounds wanky, but sales really saved my life in many ways and quality of life. And I felt so lucky to have been given the opportunity, but more importantly, been around the people and the skills training that was required to accelerate through the curve. Most salespeople don't have that. It shouldn't be a luxury, but most salespeople don't get that. They just get literally given the job, given a laptop, maybe given a CRM and told to go make themselves successful.
Yeah.
So I get very excited about helping those people out. That's what switches me on.
Well, and it's that old sort of adage of compressing 10 years worth of knowledge into, a day or, a few hours or an hour of sharing those nuggets of wisdom, so people don't have to go through that same level of pain that you did.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really amazing. So like I'm 23 odd years in consulting now and doing the training, which is quite a long time. And when you get people who literally come up to you and say, 15 years ago when I was starting my career out, you said this to me and I built my career around that. And you're like going, I got to be careful of what I say.
Yeah, that is true.
But I'm incredibly grateful that I've found a way to live that purpose and earn great money doing it, which is a reflection of the amount of value that you're driving into the system and the people that you work with. And to satisfy my absolute curiosity around sales and fulfill that value of growth in terms of, increasing my knowledge, increasing my understanding, increasing my impact, and increasing the number of people that I have that impact on. So it's, so that philosophy is really underpinned, and that purpose has really underpinned everything I've done over the last 23 years.
Yeah, and also I like this concept of what you discussed earlier about like, who do I want to be right now? I mean, that's personally, how I live my life. I wake up and I'm like, well, who do I want to be in this moment? And therefore, how am I going to react based on my values and my integrity? And, sometimes we get it wrong. I mean, I certainly do, but that sense of like cultivating that strong sense of who do you want to be? I mean, you went through some really difficult times with, major debt, which some businesses will be experiencing right now. You had the death of your father, which is incredibly tragic and difficult to deal with. Did you seek some resources outside of what you currently had? I mean, were there books, were there courses, training?
So I never went through counselling, and I don't know why. I mean, I'm not against counselling at all. It would never really hit it for me. I've always had, I think, a very strong set of internal voices and a very good ability to have a good conversation with myself.
Yeah.
And take different viewpoints. But so definitely books, tapes were a big part of my life. Meditation was a big part of my life. So, I did my first meditation course when I was 12 and a half years old. My dad was very much a businessman, but he was a pretty cosmic guy. And I had, I guess, what they probably would have labelled ADHD now.
Yeah.
For me, it was just, an overactive mind, massive amounts of energy, needed somewhere to go. And so his response was, okay, well, like, you need to learn to meditate. I've read about it in a book. I think it's the right thing for you to do. And so off we went down to the transcendental meditation place, which was full of cosmic hippies back in those days. It's like 37 or 30. Well, God, no, it's coming up to 40 years. 40 years ago. But so no, I'm a huge believer that you've got to constantly be feeding your brain with the thinking and the thoughts and the writings and the lessons and now the audio, much more so for me, from people who have had massive experience, can share ideas. And I'm a real listen to the same thing 20 times kind of guy.
Yeah.
If I like a message in something, I'll listen to it again and again and again and again, because I think if you really want to change your thinking or improve your thinking, you need to immerse yourself. And it's hard to immerse yourself for 3 days and go sit in a dark room and listen to the same book and consider the same thought. But it is easy to immerse yourself by listening to the same thing 20 different times.
Yeah.
And make after distinction.
And especially, some of us are slow learners, right? So the drop straight away, you need that repetition. And I said this to the interview with Bruce Hall, which was episode number 1, and basically said, I asked Bruce, how does he retain information? Because I know Bruce has a voracious appetite for reading and podcasts and courses. And how do you retain the high level of information that you're absorbing? Because we get bombarded with so much these days. And if you're, listening to podcasts, reading books, repeating things 20 times, what's your technique?
Oh, look, I'm definitely into less is more. So as in, I'd rather consume less good information more times than more information less times. I think when you specialize, it's much easier, because if you're listening to 20 podcasts, but they're all in the same area, then you're much more likely to remember things and pick things up. And I consume information to teach others. So, if you read a book just to read a book, you won't consume it. If you read it thinking, you know what, I'm looking for something in here to share with others or teach others, your brain goes into a very different place.
Yeah.
In terms of retention. So something as simple as the newspaper, I always say to salespeople, if you're going to read the newspaper, which I don't recommend, but if you're going to read the Fin Review, then go looking for the article that you can share with one of your clients or prospects that's going to make them think that you're smarter and deliver value to them.
Yep. And
when we approach anything that way, we get a lot better. We get so much better at retaining it.
And you've got this great ability to build rapport with people. Have you got particular techniques around how you build? Let's just put your sales hat on for a moment. How you build that rapport with people, connect, and then be able to influence them in a positive way. Where does that come from?
I really like people. I know it sounds strange, but if you don't like people, it's very hard to build rapport with people. So the number one predictor of whether two people will be in a state of liking or rapport is whether the person trying to build rapport actually likes the other human being.
Yeah.
And so I find it very easy to look at human beings from a perspective of, I want to meet this human being, as opposed to going, oh, that's a mark or a target and I've got to sell them something. That's not really how my brain processes opportunities or people or what's going on. So I think that's the first thing. I am extremely empathetic. So I'm really good at putting myself in the shoes of the other person. My brain's very, very strong at that. And so the piece of feedback I get again and again and again from all my clients globally is you figure out ways to sell our product better than we do. But how do you do that? And it's like, because I go to bed imagining I'm one of your sales guys thinking about the problems that they would face.
Yeah.
and trying to come up with solutions. And I think because I've been through so many highs and lows, and I've sold commission only, and I've been in massive debt, and I've started with nothing, and and I've been at the smart end of town, having an MBA and a law degree and all the rest of it, and at the dumb end of town being a commission only salesperson. And I don't mean that with any disrespect. I can empathise with a very broad range of people.
Mm.
And so for those of you that are selling solar, the more you can put yourself in the shoes of the homeowner that you're talking to and go, what would this look like and sound like from their perspective, the better you're going to be at that. It's really simple. But it starts out with liking people, and a lot of that comes back to liking yourself.
Oh, that is the gold nugget right there. I mean, it's really hard to like anyone else unless you like yourself. And it's really hard to like yourself unless you've done some sense of introspection and take some time out, because we're constantly surrounded by noise. And if we're always surrounded by noise and people and stimulus, we never have time to actually settle the mind enough in that kind of, let's call it meditative state, to then actually let the true voice come out. And then learn, who am I? And do I like that person? And if I don't like that person, who do I want to be? And what am I going to do to make some changes?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also interesting, I think that there's so much stimulus to make you not like yourself at the moment. So you only have to, not right now, but 6 months ago, you jump on Facebook and you go, well, I don't have as nice a car as them, and I'm not going on as nice a holidays as they are, and I don't have as nice a clothes as they do, and I don't eat as many restaurants as they do, and I don't seem to have as many days off as they do. So my life's crap. I must be crap. So there's this whole construct around us at the moment that's absolutely convincing us every moment of every day that we're not enough.
Yeah.
And so I think a huge life skill for any human being, but especially a salesperson, is to clear away all that clutter and go, if I'm sitting on the beach in just my board shorts on a cheap and cheerful towel, and that's all I got, do I like the human being that's there?
Yeah.
And if you can get to the place where you go, actually, yeah, that human being's pretty cool. It becomes so much easier to like other people because you're not sucked into that whole insecurity that the world and advertisers are desperately trying to make you feel, because that's the source of all consumption.
Well, and it is. And then we see these images of, guys and girls driving Lamborghinis and flying in chartered, jets. And I mean, I've certainly experienced, some of those things, and therefore that must be success. And it's BS really, because that's not success.
I mean, look, if they are flying in jets and they are driving Lamborghinis, good luck to them. I say good on you. That's awesome. If that's cool. And if that's floating your boat, that's awesome. And if you've done enough to be able to financially pay for that, that's congratulations. Chapeau to you. But unfortunately, the majority of those images, the majority of those advertisements are from people who don't have those things and are trying to suck you dry of money so that they can have those things. And it's scary how many people get sucked into that, that vortex. So we've got to be really careful of that. And I think that's another thing about COVID-19 and this environment is I really sat down. I mean, okay, cool. What are the things that I love doing that don't cost a lot of money? Because I'm really going to have to focus on those things in my life. And luckily for me, I've already got a push bike that I can ride. I've got a set of goggles to go swimming with, and I've got a set of runners to run with, and I'm happy.
Yeah.
And I think the main thing I had to get my head around was learning to love $12 to $15 bottles of wine.
Well, I mean,
there's some good ones out there.
Yeah, you got to look hard, but yeah, you might be able to find a few good ones.
Or maybe I've just found a taste for it. I don't know. Killed my palate.
Well, Dean, I'm really keen to sort of learn more about. I mean, you've come into contact with so many businesses now around the world, and often success leaves clues.
Yeah,
and you could have seen some commonalities between the successful businesses that are actually really moving and shaking right now, and the ones that have failed. And have you noticed 2 or 3 commonalities between those businesses that have made them successful?
Yeah, look, there's 3, definitely. I've got a very strong philosophy around this. That I shaped up a couple of years ago when a client said, look, if you had to put down on one page what we need to learn from you from the past 20 years, what would it be? And there's really three things that differentiate businesses and successful from unsuccessful. So the number one is passion for platform. Like if you're people and you don't love what it is that you do and sell, and they're not passionate about that, then the probability of success is very low. And if you can't create that passion in customers and prospective customers as a result of the stories that you tell and the way that you sell, then you're unlikely to really outperform the market. You might survive. You might earn enough money to pay the beer bill and a holiday once a year, but you're not really going to thrive, right? So the great businesses have an absolutely rabid passion for platform, and they can create that in their people. They have it in themselves, and they can create that in prospective customers. They find it easy to generate leads. Process, the businesses with the great processes that follow those great processes absolutely smash the businesses that just think they can hire great people and fix the mess up without it. And so I'm an ex-McDonald's kid, and strong process around who we target, how we engage them to generate leads, how we propose solutions to them, and then basically how we retain them and generate referrals out of them. The more process you've got around those things, the more successful you're going to be. And I think a lot of the businesses that in our industry in solar that people are very jealous of and go, well, they're chop shops and they're ripping people off and they're flogging things. Actually, what people are jealous of is they've got a really strong process and they can put 30 kids in a room on phones and make it all work, right? Yeah. So the great businesses have process. And then the third thing is people productivity. So the really strong businesses are very good at making their people feel confident and motivated and holding them accountable for consistent activity, because consistently good beats occasionally great in sales.
Yeah.
So, and I think the most interesting thing out of that framework that I have a lot of debate around is I would much rather have a robust process and average people than an average process and strong people. If you throw strong people into a really average to crap process, you'll destroy them. You'll suck the life out of them.
Yep.
Now, average people into a good, strong process, that's when you've got a business that really runs itself, that you remain excited by, and that other people can succeed in.
Well, which is kind of like the McDonald's, way of doing things. You take young kids and
100%. And so COVID-19, I think for many people is an opportunity to, if I'm not doing as many installations, if I'm not selling as much, if I don't have as much of my time to be taken up and I'm earning a bit less money, you're probably better off diverting that extra time that you've got into really refining your processes, knowing that we will at some point in time come out of this and be moving forward into another reality. Get those processes right so that, as we do start to move forward, if you can survive, get ready to thrive. That's the way people need to be thinking about things. And
what about
conversation with Liam Ricketts from Supply Partners the other day, just about, well, what makes for a good video presentation when you can't see the customer face to face, and how do you put process around that? And we, had a really good, interesting conversation around that. And I think that, even something as simple as that, as what's the best way and what's the process and how could we teach somebody else to execute this process for me so that I can be out installing, is a really important piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely. And in this time, it's obviously crucial to develop marketing strategies and what's different, in your approach, because so many companies are vanilla. They go into a sale and they're like, hey, we've got these blue rectangles and we've got these control boxes and it generates solar and we can do it a little bit cheaper than the competitor. So then they're competing on price, as opposed to telling like a really unique and compelling story and differentiating somehow. And what are your thoughts on that differentiation piece?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. It's so much easier to differentiate if you're clear about who your target market is. So if you're trying to sell solar to anybody with a heartbeat and a breath, then it's almost impossible from a marketing perspective to differentiate yourself. If on the other hand, you're going, okay, we're selling commercial solar to the transport industry, and we're going to learn more about the transport industry and more about the types of structures that they tend to reside in, and more about their energy usage than anybody else in the marketplace, so that we can, whenever we speak to somebody who's in the transport industry, we can drop the language, we can give them a few interesting facts, we can talk about other people in the transport industry we're doing business with, and the way that we sell and the way that we talk about their industry to them automatically differentiates us. So I think the first thing is just, people can't differentiate because they haven't chosen their target market, clearly. The other thing is differentiation. You don't have to be different to differentiate. Sometimes just focusing on one particular thing much more than your competitors will differentiate you. So if you have maybe three differentiators, like let's just say it's your installation team, it's the quality of panel that you use, and it's the length of time you've been in business. And I've identified there's 7 kind of different areas that organisations in solar can differentiate themselves across. But if you just go, okay, you know what? Actually, all of our marketing, all of our advertising is going to predominantly focus around our installation, and we're going to be able to tell you, the 7 most common issues with installation. We're going to have photos of our installers and a story about each of our installers on the website. When we talk to somebody and we're selling to them, we're going to say, actually, Joe would be your installer, and Joe's been in the industry 19 years. And here's 3 testimonials on Joe, and here's some information about Joe's family and here's why Joe's passionate to be in the industry. And you heavily focus on that installation angle, you can differentiate by just choosing one thing to give people more information and better information about. So there is definitely opportunities, and it's critical, because if there's no easy difference for a customer, they go to the easiest difference, which is price.
Yeah.
If you're facing price buyers and consistently losing or consistently having to slash your margins, it means that in the buyer's mind, you have not created enough difference and enough value in that difference for them to justify paying extra. And that's normally your fault, not theirs.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely it is.
Everyone's price buying, and it's so competitive, and those idiots in that other company are slashing the prices, and they're providing crap solar, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, rather than going, okay, we need to be better at selling quality.
Yeah.
And better at selling people out of price.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm interested in this point around creating kind of grit and resilience in the approach too, because, especially in sales, your speciality, rejection can be brutal. All sales people go through.
My speciality is rejection, then.
So what's your advice for businesses that are feeling high levels of rejection right now, and how do they develop that grit and resilience to push through?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. The first is your expectations. If you have an expectation that you should be able to sell to 100% of leads and successfully sell 100% of the time, you're setting yourself up for massive anxiety, frustration, anger, because those expectations are never going to be met. I've never seen a system that genuinely converts more than 50% of the leads from a genuine lead point of view, not from when they're pre-cooked or they're pre-qualified.
Yeah.
It genuinely converts more than 50% of leads into new customers. What does that mean? It means that to be successful as a salesperson, you have to be prepared to fail more often than you succeed.
Yeah.
And when you get that through your head, the failure doesn't hurt you as much, and that enables you to have the energy to keep going to succeed. So I think the first thing is just getting your head around the fact that, hey, failure is a natural part of sales. And if I'm not falling over enough, I'm not skiing hard enough. If I'm not failing enough, then I'm not selling hard enough to enough people enough of the time. I think the second thing is basically, whilst failure is acceptable and should be expected, making the same mistake again and again and again is not acceptable. So looking inside your successes and analysing your successes so that you can figure out what you should be doing again and again and again and again and again is a very important part of moving towards sales excellence, systemising things, building a process that's more likely to make you successful on a more consistent basis. And then always understanding that you have options despite the fact that they're imperfect options. So there is a response to every objection.
Yep.
There are responses that are significantly more effective than other responses. There is no silver bullet that will get over the objection 100% of the time, but understanding that you need to have a strategy and constantly be going back to those strategies and refining them and refining them and refining them and refining them.
Oh, it's crucial that objection handling and doing all your preparation in advance to be ready to handle any objection. you're ready to go. As soon as the customer says, well, I've got a cheaper price over here, you know what you're going to say next. When a customer says that, hey, I've got a particular brand over here that I'm looking at, you instantly know where to come back.
Yeah, and then the really smart salespeople actually build stuff into the front end of their sales process that reduces the objections at the back end. So in your example there, I've got a cheaper one over here. Starting out, look, there's really three ways to look at this. Do you want the cheapest solution? Do you want a mid-range solution that's going to deliver you really good value but cost a little bit more? Or do you want the high-end solution, like the Mercedes-Benz, that you're going to have absolute comfort is going to sit on your roof for the next 25 to 30 years and generate great returns? I can give you a solution to any three of those. Which one do you think is going to fit you best?
Yeah.
Now, if you have that conversation at the start of the sales process, you're less likely to be surprised but someone's offering you a cheaper one, because your response to that is, well, of course they are. You and I talked about the mid-range solution. I could have offered you a cheaper solution. If you want one, I still can.
Yeah.
But we talked about the fact that, you didn't want a warranty that you couldn't claim on. We talked about the fact that from an aesthetics point of view, if these things turn brown, it's going to be horrible. We talked about the fact that you wanted an Australian service department and you didn't want to have to call an overseas number. And so, look, I can give you a solution, but understand that there's a price that you pay for cheap.
Yeah.
So much easier to handle. So the really smart organisations actually avoid those objections or build stuff into the front end so that those conversations are so much easier or just don't happen at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, Dean, I could do this all day long. I mean, you and I have a lot of fun in our chats. But we are towards the end here of our conversation, and just want to thank you.
Pleasure.
Well, your inspiration, your energy, your vitality. I mean, that isn't just a part of who you are. You cultivate that.
Yeah.
That cultivated energy. Like, I'm sure your personality is naturally like that anyway. But especially during these hard times, you're doubling down on all the things that you're doing outside of your workday to bring your A game. And I really honour you for that.
Thank you very much, and thanks for putting together this forum. I hope it's useful for people. And look, I guess the biggest message you need to really embed into your mind at the moment is there'll be another side to this. Like we will move through the COVID-19 period. Who knows what that looks like? Who knows what it sounds like? Who knows what it feels like? But I can guarantee you that there is going to, the good times will come again.
Yeah.
Just make sure you don't waste too much time in this moment making it a bad time. It doesn't have to be a totally bad time. There's plenty of good to be achieved.
Absolutely. And then if you stop everything right now, you stop putting energy and effort in, then it's going to be much harder 3 months, 6 months down the track to actually pick it up and get going again.
And now is not the time to be digging yourself a hole.
Yeah, that's true. Right? Well, look, one very last question for you, Dean, which is, imagine it is your last day on Earth and you've come to the end of your time, your career is finished, you've had great successes, great tragedies along the way, and you've developed a lot of wisdom, and you have the opportunity to provide 3 pearls of wisdom for your grandchildren. If you end up having those, and what would you say to them? It could be a word or it could be a sentence about just 3 pearls of wisdom that they can take.
If it's not making you happy, change it or move away from it. Whatever you do, don't accept it. So that's the first one, right? So if it ain't making you happy, change it or move away from it. Just don't accept it, because that's choosing the path of the mediocre, which is horrible, and you don't want to be lying on your deathbed thinking I made that choice.
Yep.
I think the second one is don't attach your identity to your work, because your work's going to change so many times over the course of your life that if who you are is purely attached to your work, you're going to be very confused as the world changes around you. And there are many aspects of your work that you have no control over. So don't attach your identity solely to your work. You have to build an identity that's built around a much broader range of things in terms of the stuff that you love doing, the way that you treat other people, your emotional and mental resilience, your intelligence, your desire to learn, things that are outside pure work. I think is a really, really important one. And I'm seeing a lot of stress in the system now because people who have been taken away from their jobs, even those who can financially cope, are in a world of pain because so much of their identity was all about what they do for a job. And And the third one I think is just believe in reciprocity. Move through the world doing favors for others, knowing that it might not come back directly, but it will come back.
Yeah.
Life and sales is incredibly joyous when your primary focus in meeting another human being is actually how can I help this person?
Yep.
It just makes life so much more fun and sales so much more fun. So there you go.
Oh, great points to share with people right now. Thanks, Dean. And if people want to get in touch with you or buy one of your sales programs, where do they go?
Sure. So deanmannix.com is the website. There is a solar product on there. So if you search Dean Mannix plus solar, there are products on there. But you can just contact me, Dean at deanmannix.com, and I'm always happy to chat to people about what's available and what we can do.
Yep.
And would love to hear from people.
Yeah, fantastic. And I know people are, teams are buying your solar programs now. Or
yeah, it's great.
Yeah, which is fantastic. I mean, you've got some, conversions, conversations recorded and some training around that, which is fantastic. So, yeah, you've got a lot to share, and we appreciate your time today, Dean, and thank you very much.
Go get it, Russ. Take care. Thanks.
Cheers, Dean. Bye.